What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review. Now, to preface, originally I was going to do my Tribal Gaze review, but after listening to the album, I'm just going to go ahead and say I wasn't a big fan of that album. So when I heard about this one, and I forgot about this one, I decided, okay, I'm going to scrap Tribal Gaze. Sorry to those who wanted that review. I do apologize, but I'll just flat out say I wasn't a big fan of it. This took more priority. I am talking about the latest offering from Biohazard, Divided We Fall. This also came out on October 17th, this time on Frontier Records. And this is the band's 10th studio full-length and their first one in 13 years and their first one in almost 20 since Evan Seinfeld was last in the band, and now he's back and here we are. So for those who don't know, or if you've been living under a rock, Biohazard is a New York-based, oh man, it's kind of hard to describe them because they are a unique blend of a lot of stuff, like New York hardcore, metallic hardcore, groove metal, thrash metal, rap metal, all kind of blend together into one melting pot. And so, yeah, it's kind of hard to strictly categorize them. I would say the best way to describe them is a groove metal band because they do share a lot in common with bands like Pantera and Machine Head and Sepultura and bands like that that go into the more groove metal oriented style, but with a more hardcore inspiration behind it. So yeah, of course I was a fan of this band mostly for their early stuff, particularly Urban Discipline, because that's like one of the 90s metal albums for sure. So I was curious to hear this, considering I hadn't thought about this band in a while. Other than the Judgment Night song, I've listened to that one almost nonstop. But here we are with a new album, and produced by Matt Hyde, former Hatebreed producer, and Slayer and Deftones, amongst many other big bands. I will say, production-wise, he really brings out the beef out of the mix. Like, everything's perfectly balanced, and it sounds heavy as balls. Kicking off with Fuck the System, sinister melody before you get into like this thrashy, hardcore fury with these riffs, and it feels very much like classic Biohazard, and then you go into chug and groove, breakdowns. Lead work, I'll go ahead and say that Bobby still can rip on guitar. And I always feel like that's, in my opinion, what kept Biohazard from being considered a straight-up hardcore band, because I always often associate hardcore as having little to no guitar solos. So the fact that basically every song, for the most part, has a lead on here, it's hard pressed to really call this band hardcore. I think they're definitely way more metal, in my personal opinion. But you still get like punky hardcore bits here and there for sure in like some of the riffs. Like I'll say in tracks like Forsaken and Word to the Wise and War Inside Me, and hell, even the closer, Warriors, you definitely get some like punky vibes, but it's done in a metal way as opposed to a punk rock way. Like Forsaken, it's just flat out aggressive as all get out. And then going forward into tracks like, Word to the Wise, I actually really like how it starts off with like a more dissonant build before you get those like kind of punky riffs on top of thrashy drums. And then War Inside Me, it like kind of goes back and forth between feeling punky but also feeling thrashy, same with Warriors. But for the most part, what you're getting on this album is a lot of chug and a lot of groove that definitely feels more metal. Like Forsaken, after the aggressive, almost punkiness, it goes straight in like these big, like heavy metal chugs and grooves that just makes you want to fucking punch somebody in the face. And then Eyes on Six, this one's kind of a unique one because it starts off with like haunting synths and dark melodies, and dare I say it gets almost doomy. Like this and Death of Me, both of these songs are almost doom metal because they're slower, they're a little more riff focused. But with Eyes on Six, it goes straight afterwards into like thrash metal riffs on top of D-beat, stomps, and gallops. But whereas with Death of Me, it for the most part stays in that like slow to mid-tempo range. but with a really nasty breakdown, of course. But then we get back to, like, as far as, like, when it gets a little bit more on the thrash metal side, a lot of this album gets into thrash metal territory, like the Fight to Be Free. Like, after the big chug and breakdowns, again, thrash metal riffs on top of D beats that feel like early Metallica, early Slayer, like that kind of style, but with a lot more heft behind it. And then Straight to the Face of Adversity. Like, this one, for the most part, is just like a straight up groove song. Like, it's chuggy, it's heavy, it's groovy. Again, the breakdowns, I really love the breakdowns that this band does because they don't feel like straight up slam. It's just, we're just breaking these riffs down to the core. And then Tear Down the Walls. Man, this one might have been one of the more vicious songs on the album. Maybe the most vicious song because, again, great groove and everything, but man, when it's thrashy, it is just hyper aggressive and vicious and gnarly. And I also love how towards the middle it builds up very well. And of course, Evan Seinfeld's bass tone is really, really killer on here, and he's delivering some great bass lines. Like, hell, the opening of Fight to Be Free, great bass line to start everything off. And hell, even in Tear Down the Walls, going back to the lead work, probably the most shreddy lead on the entire album. And then I Will Overcome, kind of like a push and pull dynamic between being a thrash metal song and a groove metal song. And then I'd be hard pressed to forget about the hip hop aspect. Like, a lot of the grooves are kind of like hip hop inspired, but done in a metal sense. Even a lot of the vocals definitely have that like rap delivery, which I always liked Evan Seinfeld's like rapping vocals on Biohazard tracks because it definitely adds like a more street vibe to everything. And then the closer, Warriors, basically perfectly mixes the entire album into one. You get some punk, you get some groove, you get some thrash, you get some chug, killer lead work, just all wrapped together into one. And the big thing I definitely appreciate about this album is that this album doesn't feel like it drags or is long in the tooth. It's under 40 minutes, and pretty much the average length of these songs is about 3.5 minutes per song. In fact, the longest tracks are like 350, 351. So this album kind of flies by. I will say, maybe too many songs. I feel like they could have maybe trimmed the fat on a couple of tracks, or maybe not trimmed the fat, but maybe could have saved a couple of songs for like an EP, made this album be like more like 33 minutes, because I feel like 11 songs might be pushing it, but thankfully the songs, all the songs are great. It's just maybe condense them down a little bit more, so that way, hell, you could have had material for an EP. You know what, screw it. I forget what I just said there. I feel like I'm having a nitpick, but I really don't want to nitpick. I really enjoyed this one. It is just heavy. It is nasty. I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5. I will say, yeah, some of the riffs can sound a bit samey, but man, they just know how to chug and groove and break down, and they do it very well, better than a lot of bands today. So if you love Biohazard, you're going to check this out. I know I loved it. But for those who aren't familiar with Biohazard, if you are fans of bands like, I would say bands like Earth Crisis, Old Hatebreed, but also even bands like, I would say like Sepultura, Pantera, I'd say check them out. This is some good stuff. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.